Absolutely. Amanda, thank you very much indeed. So on to New Hampshire they go. As Amanda was saying, we will get results, partial results, shortly from Iowa. And let's get more then, shall we? I'm joined from Washington by Chris Jackson, who is the US Vice President of the polling company Ipsos. What a fascinating night it was. The steam has gone right out of Iowa, hasn't it? Does that mean that whoever does win eventually, when we finally find out, will have lost that momentum that they carry forward as well?
Yeah, Iowa really seems to be a bit of a false start for the Democratic nomination contest. It's normally it's the attention the candidate gets in this first week after the election really helps raise their profile, raise their name recognition. And I don't think it's going to happen, especially with our busy political week with the State of the Union and the impeachment trials, final votes, and then another Democratic debate actually on Friday. It just doesn't seem like it's going to really translate into very much action for the Democrats.
Yes, one of the articles I read, I think it was the New York Times, said Iowa and New Hampshire, here they come again, reliably in grim tandem like the flu and gastroenteritis. Two small, unrepresentative states will set the terms of the Democratic presidential campaign, exerting far more influence over the nominating process than states that rank 32nd and 42nd in population have any right to. And the article went on to suggest that actually first should be places like Florida or Michigan or other places. Will they exert influence this time, do you think, Iowa and New Hampshire, or has their moment passed?
So the big thing motivating Democrats this year is finding a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump. And these early contests are essentially a chance for some Democratic candidate to show just that they're a winner, that they can win elections. If there's someone who comes out of New Hampshire with a clear win, a clear lead, it's going to help them make that case that they're that electoral winner. But with what happened in Iowa last night and New Hampshire being actually relatively close, it almost looks like we may not have any more answers coming out of these first two contests than we had going into them.
Well, let's get your polling expertise. Who do you expect to win Iowa and New Hampshire, and who's ahead in the national polling?
So going into Iowa is a four-way tie with Biden, Sanders, Warren and Buttigieg. Some of the early returns suggest that Buttigieg and Sanders did particularly well coming out of it. But there's only a couple of hours before the State of the Union, so there's probably going to be a very little effect. Going into New Hampshire, Sanders is doing well. He comes from Vermont, the state right next door. He's sort of a local favorite. If he's able to sort of win by a decent margin there, he'll be able to take that momentum into Nevada and South Carolina, the final two early states before Super Tuesday in March, which is really when the big slate of delegates is going to be on the table.
I counted that 18 candidates have already dropped out. Correct me if I'm wrong. Still 11 remain. When will this long list start getting properly filtered out?
So you'll probably see a few more drop out between now and Super Tuesday, but really it's going to be Super Tuesday where you see most of the candidates who aren't placing in the high ranks drop out. That's really going to be the make or break. So I would expect to stay with maybe not 11, but certainly 9 or 10 candidates through the rest of February.
And the whole point about Iowa and New Hampshire, and then as we move on to the other states, is it sorts the wheat from the chaff, doesn't it? It shows those candidates who are not viable. How is Joe Biden doing? And is he the most famous, if you like, with the greatest name recognition of all the Democratic candidates?
Yeah, so Joe Biden's strength is his name recognition. He's almost universally known, and his connection to Barack Obama, who's still very popular with the Democratic Party. But he's had a very problematic case on electability. He's struggled in the past presidential elections when he's run to do very well. And if he doesn't win one of these early states, it's going to be very hard for him to continue making that case. And that potentially opens the door for someone like Pete Buttigieg or Mike Bloomberg, who's waiting in the wings, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising.
And is part of the problem for the Democratic Party that it really is split down the middle pretty much between the progressives and the moderates, and whoever is the candidate needs to try to bring the party together?
Really, the challenge to the Democratic Party is they're so fixated on finding a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump, they just can't agree on what that takes. Biden's argument is you want somebody that's broadly reasonable, that people in the middle will like, versus Sanders and Warren, who are saying that you need somebody who's going to fire up the base, who's going to get people to turn out to vote. And it's a fundamental disagreement about what it's going to take to win. It's not really about policy or ideology, where most Democrats are actually, broadly speaking, on the same page. It's really just about how do they win in November.
It's fascinating. fascinating contest already, isn't it? Despite what happened in Iowa. Chris Jackson, US Vice President of Ipsos, thank you very much indeed. Fascinating to hear from you. Thank you. So, as we heard there, the US President gives his State of the Union address in just over 6 hours. We will bring you that live from 2 o'clock in the morning. Authorities in Ireland are investigating